In northern Mexico, near the border, a human head on the ground slowly wriggles, making Hank, who came to provide support, shudder. They quickly drove to the scene, and what they found was even more chilling. A tortoise was crawling forward, carrying the head of a DEA informant. Hank, who had never seen such a horrifying scene, was almost scared out of his wits. He made the excuse of going to the bathroom to ease his tense emotions. Unexpectedly, this was mocked by his colleagues on the border patrol, who said, "Look at you, acting like you've never seen the world before. It's just a tortoise carrying a human head. What's the big deal?" However, the next second proved them wrong. This unexpectedly allowed Hank to escape a disaster. The one who had led the mocking, Vanko, now had his legs destroyed. Ironically, before he acted, he gave Hank a lecture on Chinese history.
Sun Tzu.
Sun who?
6th century Chinese general, wrote The Art of War. If you know your enemy is yourself, you'll fight without danger in many battles.
Right on.
Vanko was so confident because they had their own informant inside the contraband cartels, Tortuga. To get accurate information, the DEA agents humbly catered to Tortuga, who deliberately played coy, wanting the DEA to give him more benefits. This was something Hank could not stand by and watch.
How about you stop jerking us off here? Where's the meat? When's it going down?
Don't like, let's make a deal, huh?
Gonna kick your ass, you don't stop wasting his time.
Schrader. My name's Tortuga. You know what that means?
If I'd have to guess, I'd say that's Spanish.
Tortuga means turtle. That's me.
Unexpectedly, the next second, Tortuga's head was placed on a tortoise, and it was even turned into a head bomb. Although no Mexican cartel leader appeared in person in this battle, it still showcased their cruelty and ruthlessness. At the same time, right after finishing his class, Walter secretly contacted Jesse, but Jesse did not answer. With no other choice, Walter drove to Jesse's residence, but after knocking for a long time, there was no response. Unexpectedly, he woke up the beautiful neighbor. Walter lied, claiming he was Jesse's father, and asked the landlord to help him open the door, but Jane firmly refused. Just as Jane was about to send Walter away, Jesse, playing dead, heard their conversation and voluntarily opened the door.
Come on in, Dad.
To avoid Jane's suspicion, Jesse even cooperatively called Walter Dad. The last episode showed that after witnessing Spudge's gruesome death, Jesse was left with a severe psychological shadow. To forget the terrifying scene, he kept numbing himself and complained that Walter had forced him to go. Worried that Walter might forget, Jesse even took out the gun Walter had given him as a reminder, saying that he had handled the situation. Walter, seeing this, quickly explained that he only wanted Jesse to scare them, not expecting Jesse to kill them. Jesse also gave Walter half of the money he had gotten. However, when Walter took out the bullets from the gun, he found that they were all still there. Jesse described the detailed events to Walter, the sound of the ATM crushing the skull crisply echoing in Jesse's ears. Just then, Badger called, saying he had sold all his goods and asked Jesse to send him more. But Jesse told Walter he was not in the mood. He just wanted to forget everything as soon as possible. With no other choice, Walter had to step in himself. He arranged to meet Badger and 2 others at the museum for the deal. From them, Walter learned that the entire town knew Jesse had blown Spudge's head off, and they were very fearful about it. Hearing this, Walter had a light bulb moment and knew his opportunity had come. He turned around, found Jesse, and, with a map of the entire state, started to plan. Walter, seeing gold everywhere and once not wanting anyone else involved, now asked Jesse to develop sub-dealers as soon as possible. Jesse thought he was crazy. Those were other people's territories, and they couldn't touch them. Walter tells Jesse that times have changed, and now he is famous in the circle. Everyone knows it was Jesse who dealt with the Spudges. He says that Jesse is now like a puffed-up pufferfish and the others are just small fish. They wouldn't dare provoke Jesse. After Walter's brainwashing, Jesse instantly revives. Jesse finally agrees to step out of his secluded cabin, and seeing Jane painting, Jesse, who also has a love for painting, takes the initiative to strike up a conversation. Just then, a man riding a motorcycle passes by the door and admires Jesse, which earns him some face in front of Jane. An excited Jesse quickly gathers Badger and the others to start planning the next tasks, and everyone is full of confidence. Later, Jesse reports to Walter about the work, and Walter decides to monopolize the market and raise the prices. And so, Heisenberg began his wild money-making journey, but Skyler obviously doesn't know about Walter's earning ability. Facing the economic pressure at home, she decides to go job hunting while heavily pregnant. Skyler tells the receptionist that she used to work here but resigned due to family reasons and says she wants to see the boss, Ted, but the receptionist says the boss is very busy and asks her to go home and wait for news. Unexpectedly, Skyler directly takes the initiative to seize the opportunity.
Skyler.
It seems Ted has a deep impression of Skyler, which makes the receptionist look bad. They start by chatting about family matters, and Skyler takes the opportunity to state her purpose. Ted is very accommodating and immediately lets her return to her former position. It seems Skyler has a very accurate grasp of Ted's psychology. Back home, she tells her sister about her job search. Marie looks at Skyler in surprise. Skyler is about to give birth, and which foolish company would want her? Skyler says it's the same company as before. This makes Marie even more surprised because Marie knows her sister resigned because Ted had inappropriate feelings for her. And now her sister is putting herself right back in the situation, showing that Skyler is really going all out for her family. The next morning, Walter sees his wife dressed differently and learns from his son that she is going to work, and it's at the company she previously quit. Walter is annoyed that his wife is now not considering the issue of welding fume pollution. She had resigned because of this before. It seems Walter doesn't know the real reason Skyler resigned, but she brushes off this issue with a few words. As soon as she arrives at the company, Ted comes running over to show concern. During their chat, Skyler also learns that Ted has divorced his wife. It's unclear what Ted is hinting at, but as he leaves, he invites Skyler to go out to eat like they used to. It seems there's quite a story between them. Skyler looks at the photo of herself and Walter and feels a twinge of guilt. On the other hand, Jesse, having made a lot of money, buys the most expensive LCD TV on the market. Just as he's figuring out how to use it, he suddenly sees his neighbor Jane coming back, curiously listening to the noise. Jesse hears Jane come into the backyard and follows her, apologizing for hiding his real name from her and that the man who knocked on the door that day wasn't his father. To express his apology, he invites Jane to watch TV with him. Seeing his sincere demeanor, Jane agrees, but embarrassingly, the TV can't find any signal. To relieve the awkward atmosphere, Jesse has to explain the powerful features of the TV. Actually, Jane is also someone who lacks love inside, which we will talk about later. She and Jesse have many things in common, which is the main reason they quickly came together. Just then, Jane takes the initiative to hold Jesse's hand. After the event, Jesse complains that it's time for him to buy some furniture, and Jane suggests he start with a bed. Seizing the moment, Jesse tentatively invites Jane to smoke something with him, but she decisively refuses, because she has been sober under her father's supervision for 18 months. Jesse expresses his great admiration and says he only smokes occasionally himself. Jesse wants to clarify their relationship, but Jane doesn't give a direct answer and just reminds him that his TV has found the signal.
So my boss accused me of stealing!
You are under arrest.
I'd been out partying, minding my own business.
The TV advertisement features the flamboyant lawyer Saul, who will appear in this episode. Because of his excellent performance, a spin-off series titled Better Call Saul was created. His brainwashing slogans left a deep impression on the audience, and his gift of the gab greatly enhanced the watchability of the entire series. To introduce the character of Saul into the story, the director deliberately created an incident where Badger was caught in a sting operation. Notice the slogan Better Call Saul on the back of the long bench. At the same time, Walter receives a call for help from Marie, who says Hank has returned from the border without saying a word and seems like a changed person. She wants Walter to give Hank some guidance. This plot is quite ironic, with a criminal giving psychological advice to a police officer, but in Hank's eyes, Walter is just a pushover who has lived half a life and ended up with lung cancer, with no money to treat it. However, he doesn't know about Walter's experiences since being diagnosed with cancer. Walter uses his own mentality of fighting lung cancer to counsel Hank, saying that the fear inside is his greatest enemy. He encouraged Hank to pick himself up and show those criminals what he's made of. Hank looks at Walter in surprise, thinking he must pull himself together and not let someone he once look down on him. So, Hank pretends to be composed and returns to the DEA to work again. Stephen assigned the case of Badger's arrest to Hank because the blue contraband they seized was Heisenberg's work, and Hank had been investigating Heisenberg. The two decide to meet him. At this time, Badger is negotiating with the officer who caught him. As long as he names his supplier, he can be freed. Before Badger can answer, Saul Goodman makes his spectacular entrance, and with his gift of the gab, he instantly leaves Gets speechless. Even on his own turf, Gets can't handle Saul. Saul pitches his services to Badger, handing over his price and business card and assuring him that he is the best criminal defense lawyer money can buy. Just as Saul is about to leave, he happens to see Hank and the others discussing, so he takes the initiative to approach and probe.
Sure, your commercials? They suck ass. She better act at the courthouse.
Is that like the one your mom works at? Is she still offering the 2-for-1 discount? DEA, huh? For a street bust. Now what would two feds want with that little twerp?
Hank, intending to humiliate Saul, unexpectedly meets his match. Badger gives Jesse Saul's contact information, and Walter and Jesse quickly find Saul's address. Walter feels Saul is unreliable, but persuaded by Jesse, he decides to give it a try. Neither wants to consult Saul in person, so they decide to flip a coin again, but Walter has never won in this regard.
Call it.
Heads.
Walter, fully armed, goes to Saul's office, pretending to be Badger's uncle to negotiate. Hearing Saul mention that this case will be tricky, involving both the police and the DEA, with the DEA's real goal being to identify the mastermind Heisenberg behind everything. Hearing this, Walter instantly becomes unsettled. Saul states that as long as Badger gives up Heisenberg, he can be free. Otherwise, he should just resign himself to his fate. After saying this, Saul prepares to leave.
$10,000.
At this moment, Walter starts coughing nonstop, an action that will later betray him. Do you think Saul was bought off by a mere $10,000? However, now successful in his career, he doesn't care about such a small amount of money, but this money is already a lot for Walter, and the negotiation breaks down because of it. To avoid being exposed, Walter and Jesse make a bold decision. They kidnap Saul as he leaves work and take him to a remote wilderness area. Seeing the large pit in front of him, Saul is terrified, not knowing which client he has offended. Jesse, wearing a hood, directly reminds Saul to provide the best defense for Badger, ensuring Badger doesn't give up anyone else and doesn't involve the DEA. Saul wonders why they don't just kill Badger, but Jesse firmly disagrees. Just then, Walter starts coughing nonstop again, the same action as when he went to negotiate with Saul, leading Saul to recognize him. Realizing he has been exposed, Walter reluctantly takes off his hood. Remember this hood? It's the same one they wore when stealing methylamine, kept for further use, probably planning to continue their crimes once that barrel of methylamine is used up. At this moment, Saul isn't so scared anymore. He slowly stands up and asks them to symbolically pay him $1. Then he can become their attorney and keep all their actions completely confidential. Understanding his client's needs, Saul decided to find someone to impersonate Heisenberg and get arrested. The next day, Saul demonstrated his skills by coordinating with Badger on the script, having Badger report Heisenberg to the DEA and agreeing to cooperate with them to lure Heisenberg out. Back in the office, Saul finds the right person for Walter and Jesse to confirm. The man's name is Jimmy. He's either in prison or on his way there, and he's happy to take the fall for anyone as long as there's money to be made. Saul's price is $80,000, of which $50,000 is his legal fee, and the remaining $30,000 is for Jimmy's compensation, although Jesse thinks Saul's fees are unreasonable. To save Badger and protect their own safety, they have no choice but to accept the terms. The drama directed by Saul is about to unfold. Under the DEA's surveillance, Badger meets the fake Heisenberg at the agreed location for the deal. Because Saul didn't show Badger a photo of Jimmy, Badger mistakenly thinks the old man in front of him is the one Saul arranged. The fake Heisenberg, Jimmy, arrives late. This scene is discovered by Walter and Jesse, hidden nearby. Seeing the plan about to fail, Walter suddenly comes up with an idea. At that moment, Badger signals the old man, but he shows no reaction. Walter tells Jesse to get out of the car to remind Badger, while he drives to block Hank and the others' line of sight. No matter how Hank explains, Walter pretends to be innocent, pretending not to understand. To buy time for Jesse, Jesse quickly goes behind Badger to remind him, and Badger then realizes the situation. Walter kept talking to Hank and refused to leave, and when he saw that Hank was about to flip out, Walter figured that Jesse would have finished the job before he reluctantly left. As soon as the car left, Hank realized that Badger had disappeared from sight and thankfully found Badger in the next chair. It was a false alarm. The two complete the transaction smoothly, and the DEA immediately orders the arrest after obtaining the evidence. When the alarm goes off, Jimmy immediately kneels down, showing that this action has been practiced skillfully. Jesse quickly returns to Walter's car, a perfect ending to a thrilling scapegoat drama. Watching Heisenberg get arrested so easily, Hank felt that something didn't quite sit right.